believing that God's timing is good, even when it's hard to see. It means saying, "Not my will, but yours," to our inner clock, and releasing control. This can be incredibly difficult, especially when the stakes feel high or the waiting drags on. But patience creates space for growth of character, understanding, and trust. It transforms waiting from frustration into a sacred discipline. Through patience, we become more attuned to God's voice and more open to His timing. One of the greatest challenges of trusting God's timing is the tension between hope and uncertainty. Hope holds us steady in the unknown, while uncertainty can make us anxious or fearful. But hope rooted in God's timing is different from mere wishful thinking. It is a confident expectation that even if we cannot see the end, God is working all things for good. This hope sustains us through delays and disappointments and teaches us to hold lightly to our plans and tightly to our faith. When we embrace God's timing, we learn that uncertainty is not something to fear, but a space where miracles can happen. Waiting in hope keeps our hearts open and our spirits alive. Our own timing is often driven by fear of missing out, fear of failure, or fear that our prayers won't be answered. But God's timing is rooted in love, and love is never rushed. It takes the time needed to nurture, to heal, and to prepare. When we release our fear and surrender to God's timing, we step into a rhythm of trust that transforms us. Instead of grasping desperately for control, we rest in the assurance that God's plans are always for our good. This trust isn't easy, but it is freeing. It allows us to live with peace, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Trusting God's timing invites us to live not by the clock, but by faith. There is a divine logic to God's timing that often defies our human understanding. It reminds me of the way the seasons change, sometimes suddenly, sometimes gradually, but always in their perfect order. We cannot speed up the arrival of spring or prolong the harvest. Similarly, our lives have seasons that come and go according to God's perfect plan. Some seasons are times of growth, others of rest, and some of challenge. Each has its purpose, and trusting God's timing means recognizing the value in every season. When we try to force things ahead of their time, we risk damaging the growth that God is nurturing inside us. Learning to honor the seasons of life is part of trusting His perfect timing. The stories of those who have trusted God's timing often reveal a pattern, moments of waiting, followed by moments of breakthrough. This pattern is not random but intentional. Waiting prepares the heart and mind for what is to come. It builds resilience, sharpens discernment, and deepens faith. When the breakthrough finally comes, it is sweeter and more meaningful because of the waiting. Without the struggle, the triumph loses its power. Without the delay, the answer loses its depth. So the next time you feel frustrated by waiting, remember that it is part of a sacred rhythm designed to shape you into the person you need to be for the blessings ahead. God's timing also reminds us that we are not in control, and that's a good thing. Control often leads to anxiety and frustration because it is an impossible burden to carry. Trusting God's timing means letting go of that burden and acknowledging that a higher power is guiding the course of our lives. This surrender doesn't mean we stop dreaming or working toward our goals. It is the difference between gripping tightly and holding loosely. When we hold loosely, we allow God's timing to lead us to places we might never have imagined. There is a profound peace that comes when we finally accept that God's timing is better than ours. This acceptance is not resignation, but liberation. It frees us from the chains of impatience and frustration. It invites us to rest in the knowledge that everything is unfolding according to a divine plan that we can trust. This peace doesn't remove the challenges or the waiting, but transforms our experience of them. Instead of anxiety, we feel calm. Instead of despair, we feel hope. Instead of confusion, we feel clarity. Trusting God's timing reshapes how we live each moment, helping us to find joy even in the waiting. One way to cultivate trust in God's timing is to reflect on the past and recognize the moments when what seemed like delays were actually blessings in disguise. Perhaps a job opportunity didn't come through, only to make room for something better. Maybe a relationship ended prematurely, opening the door for healing and growth. Looking back, we often see that God's timing was perfect, even when it felt painful in the moment. This retrospective gratitude helps build confidence in God's timing moving forward. It teaches us that, even when the now is difficult, the future holds promise. Trust is strengthened when we remember that God has never been late before. Another challenge in trusting God's timing is balancing action and patience. Sometimes we wonder if we should wait quietly or take bold steps forward. The truth is, trusting God's timing doesn't mean passivity. It means moving with discernment, guided by faith and wisdom. It means listening deeply for God's direction and acting when the time is right. This dance between waiting and acting requires sensitivity to the Spirit and courage to trust. Sometimes action will lead to new opportunities. Sometimes waiting will prepare us for what's next. Learning when to act and when to wait is a vital part of growing in faith and trusting God's perfect timing. In the moments when God's timing feels slowest, it's important to remember that God's clock is not broken. It never runs behind or ahead. It is perfect, just beyond our understanding. This perspective calls us to patience and perseverance. It also invites us to embrace the present moment fully, trusting that it is exactly where we need to be. We can choose to see waiting as an opportunity for growth, reflection, and rest. By doing so, we align ourselves with God's rhythm and open our hearts to receive His blessings in their fullness and timing. Our human timelines are often driven by fear and urgency, but God's timing is rooted in love and purpose. Love is patient, it waits without frustration. Purpose is precise, it unfolds according to plan. When we trust God's timing, we align ourselves with that love and purpose. This alignment brings clarity, peace, and direction. It helps us to stop fighting against the current and instead float with the river of life God has set before us. It frees us from anxiety about what should have happened and opens us to the joy of what is happening now. The tension between God's timing and our timing can be a powerful teacher. It teaches us humility, reminding us that we don't have all the answers. It teaches us faith, encouraging us to believe in the unseen. It teaches us hope, helping us to look beyond immediate frustrations to a future filled with promise. In this tension, we learn to lean into God's love and wisdom rather than our own understanding. We learn that sometimes the best thing we can do is wait, actively, patiently, and faithfully, trusting that God's timing is always perfect. Finally, trusting God's timing invites us to live with open hands and open hearts. It challenges us to release control, surrender our plans, and embrace the mystery of life. It calls us to patience when we want to rush, to hope when we feel despair, and to trust when we feel doubt. This trust is not easy, but it is transformative. It changes how we see ourselves, our lives, and our God. It allows us to live with peace in the waiting and joy in the journey. Ultimately, trusting God's timing is trusting God Himself, a trust that sustains us through every season and leads us into a future filled with hope. In moments of waiting, the heart can grow restless. We tend to fill silence with noise and impatience. Yet, it is often in the quiet moments that God's timing becomes clearest. The silence is an invitation, not a punishment, to listen deeply and reflect. Waiting is not the absence of movement, but a subtle, behind-the-scenes work that shapes our character and aligns our desires with what is truly best. This invisible work may be confusing or discouraging, but it is essential. Like the invisible roots of a tree growing deep underground, the work happening in the waiting prepares us for the fullness of life we have yet to see. Sometimes we ask for signs or clear answers to guide us through the waiting,